Hello and welcome back to Haworth. So today I'm in the churchyard again, but this time I want to spend a little longer with the stones themselves and with the people behind them, because this is not just the resting place of the Brontës. This was a living, breathing community. These were the people who sat in the same pews, walked the same streets and heard the same bells and lived lives just as full and complicated as the ones we already know so well. And when you stop and you read the stones properly, they begin to tell their stories. Stories of families who lost almost everything, of lives that stretched far beyond Haworth, and of moments that would have been known, talked about and remembered in the Brontë world. Some of these are quiet, some of them are deeply heartbreaking, and a few might just change the way you see this place altogether. I want to begin with the gravestone that really makes you pause. It reads, "In memory of Bernard Hartley of Ebor, who died September the 20th, 1841, aged 41. Also of 11 children of his who all died young. Also of Betty, their daughter, who died February the 7th, 1842, aged 14 years. And then it continues later, naming Susie, his wife, who died in 1868, aged 68, and John Wright, who died in 1877 in his 87th year. But it is that line that stays with you. 11 children who all died young. No names, no ages, just that one sentence. And when you stand there and take it in, it's almost impossible to imagine. 11 children all lost and not even individually recorded. And this is in 1841. This is right in the lifetime of Patrick Brontë. I mean, he could have taken their funerals. So there's no distant figures. These are people who were part of the same Haworth. They may well have sat in the same church, heard the same sermons, lived side by side with the Brontë family. And then on the same stone you see something completely different. You have John Wright, lived to 87. I mean, in a place where so many children never reached adulthood, that stands out immediately. It brings to mind Patrick himself, who lived into his 80s, outliving all of his children. So, on one gravestone you have both the fragility of life here and its rare, remarkable endurance. There is another stone that tells its story line by line, almost like a record of one man's life through loss. It begins, John, son of James and Grace Bailey, who died July the 26th, 1853, aged 17 weeks. And then, just a month later, also of the above named Grace, who died August the 28th, 1853. Already you can feel what has happened, a baby lost and then its mother soon after. But the stone continues. Also Fanny, who died January the 31st, 1863, in the 4th year of her age. Also of Harriet, who died the April of 1862 in the 36th year of her age. Also Elizabeth, who died December 1862 in the 3rd year of her age. And within a single year, 1862, he loses a child, his wife, and then another child. And then later still, Hartley, who died in the September of 1865, aged 19 weeks. And when you read it like that, slowly, it stops being just a list. It becomes a pattern of grief. And you can picture poor James Bailey returning to this same spot again and again over the years. And this is exactly the kind of life that existed here during the Brontës period. Loss was not unusual, but seeing it laid out so clearly, so relentlessly, makes it impossible to ignore. Now, I want to take you to a story that would almost certainly have been known in the Brontës world. This is the gravestone of Elizabeth Heaton of Pondon Hall. The inscription is very worn now, and in places it's hard to read at all. Time has softened the letters, but the story is still very clear once you know it. Elizabeth died in 1816, aged just 21 years old. Her daughter, Eliza Matilda, died the following year, still only a toddler, and they're buried together here. But it is what led up to that which really stays with you. The Heatons of Pondon Hall were a long-established, well-respected family. Elizabeth was the daughter of the house, so when she became pregnant at just 17, it would have caused a real shock. The man involved was John Bakes, a delivery grocer from near Leeds. He was not from her world and not someone her family would have chosen for her. Her father, Robert Heaton, a churchwarden and pillar of the local community, is said to have paid £200 for the marriage to take place in an attempt to deal with the situation. They were married at Haworth Parish Church in 1813, and within months their daughter was born. Elizabeth was then taken away to Leeds, living with the Bakes family far from Haworth and the gossip. But the life she went into was not a good one. She lived in poor conditions, working in an unheated grocer's shop, while her husband is described as a heavy drinker, spending much of his time in the alehouse and not looking after his family. By the winter of 1815, things had really broken down completely. She was seriously ill with consumption and brought back to Pondon Hall. And even then, the situation was not calm. John Bakes returned drunk, causing trouble and behaving aggressively before eventually being sent away for good. But by then it was too late. Elizabeth died in 1816, just 21 years old, and her daughter followed soon after, and within a few years her parents were also gone. All of it unfolding in a very short space of time. And when you know that, the words of the stone feel very different. The weary are at rest. Pondon Hall itself later became connected with the Brontë family, and it's often suggested as the inspiration for Thrushcroft Grange in Wuthering Heights, and the Brontë children are known to have visited there years later. So while they would have not known Elizabeth themselves, it's hard to believe her story wasn't still known in Haworth. In a place like this, stories did not just disappear. They are passed on. And when you stand here, even now, you can still feel the weight of it. There is another set of stones that connect directly to the sound of Haworth itself, the Hartley family. One gravestone reads, "Ring out the false, ring in the true." Beneath rest the remains of Sarah, who died June the 14th, 1901 in her 78th year. Also of John Hartley, who died June the 9th, 1904 in his 81st year. And then later it says, James Hartley, born April the 27th, 1859, died October the 3rd, 1933, for 55 years a bell ringer at this church. That final line is easy to pass over, but it's worth pausing on. That is a lifetime spent in the church tower, ringing the bells that would have marked every part of life in Haworth. And what is not said on the stone is that John Hartley also rang the bells here for over 60 years. Though this is not just one man, this is a family connected to the sound of the village itself. Those bells would have been heard by the Brontë family. They would have marked their days, their Sundays, their losses. And the people who rang them are here, named in stone. And then there is one story that reaches far beyond Haworth, the gravestone of Elizabeth Hartley. It reads, Elizabeth, who was lost in the steamship London, which was bound from London to Australia and founded in the Bay of Biscay in January the 11th, 1866, aged 57 years. That one line carries an entire journey. She left England, lightly in search of a new life, and yet never arrived. The ship went down in a storm with the loss of almost everyone on board. And what makes this even more striking is that we know others from the Brontë circle made similar journeys. Mary Taylor, Charlotte's friend, emigrated to New Zealand around 20 years earlier. So this is not an abstract idea. This was something people did, leaving everything behind for a chance of something new. But it came with a real risk. Elizabeth never returned, her body never brought back, and yet her name is here with her family in Haworth. She is still remembered, still part of this place, even though her life ended far out at sea. And finally, there is one stone that quietly shows the passing of time across one single family, the Rushworth family. It begins with the child, Arthur, who died December the 16th, 1871 in the second year of his life, and then continues Richard Rushworth, born October the 4th, 1842, died August the 8th, 1891. Mary, his wife, who died in July 1922, aged 81 years, and then further names, further dates, stretching all the way into the mid-20th century, nearly 80 years of one family, all recorded on one single stone. And what is so striking is how the space has been used, the main section filled up, and then the inscriptions continued lower down, almost as though the stone itself had to adapt to hold the weight of time. It becomes less of a single memorial and more of a family history, carved piece by piece as the years have passed. And as you stand here surrounded by all these stones, it's hard not to wonder about the lives behind them. How many of these people were buried by Patrick Brontë or William Weightman or later by Arthur Bell Nicholls? How many final moments did they witness? How many bedsides did they stand beside, offering what comfort they could in those last hours? And what of the Brontë sisters themselves? From the window of the parsonage they would have seen funerals pass, one after another, moving slowly through the churchyard. Did they know these names? Did they know their stories? Or were they simply part of the constant rhythm of life and loss that surrounded them? Because every one of these stones marks a life, a story, something that matters deeply to someone. And yet so many of these stories are now lost. And we are left with fragments, a name, a date, a line of inscription, just enough to remind us that something was here, but not enough to fully understand it. So perhaps the real question is not just what we can read, but what can we no longer see? What other lives lie beneath this ground, unrecorded, unremembered, their stories fading just like the words on these stones? Before you go, I'd really love to know your thoughts, and I have my normal 3 questions for you. Number 1, which of these stories stayed with you the most? Number 2, do these kind of stories change how you see Haworth and the world the Brontës lived in? Number 3, when you visit a churchyard like this, do you find yourself drawn to the well-known names or the quieter ones like these? Let me know in the comments below. It's always fascinating to hear what people think. Thank you for watching this and all my videos. If you like this video, please do the whole likey, subscribey, hypey thing, because it really does help me out and it lets YouTube know that we want to watch more Brontë content. Have a good weekend, take care of yourselves, and I will see you all the Friday after next for more Brontë adventures. Bye!